So last year OnePlus unveiled a new Android 15 update that significantly addressed many complaints and common criticisms we have of the platform. However though, with OxygenOS 16 and Android 16, I think things have changed this year and maybe not in the ways we expected. Yes, I'm a little bit frustrated, so let's get right into this video. Do me a favour though first and hit that subscribe button if you love Android content from across the entire platform. We want to be at the heart of the community talking about the things that you love and care about, so I'd love to have you along for the ride. Come join us. Cheers. So if you were unaware what the heck I'm talking about, after making such an effort to offer what I think is a pretty unique take on Android and listening to enthusiast complaints while still providing a very comprehensive package, I think it's quite odd to see OnePlus abandon some of those principles with OxygenOS 16 this year. With so many ideas flowing in changes, enhancing the OnePlus 12, then the OnePlus 13, the OnePlus 15 has launched with Android 16 pre-installed, and we're sort of left feeling that Oppo is back to their old tricks of doing things the Apple way in favour of just doubling down on what made ColorOS and OxygenOS so good over the past 12 or so months. For the avoidance of any doubt or confusion, there is almost zero difference between Android 16 on a top tier Oppo phone or a OnePlus phone today. That's no secret, and it's no great shock. It's been years in the making as they've merged these two platforms. Yes, it is still sad to see though from the hardcore fan perspective, but it does make sense. Pull those resources together and create the best possible Android skin, and that's why I'm so confused or vexed as it were by the changes this year that feel like a step away from what was making OxygenOS and ColorOS such great alternatives to One UI and others out there. Let's reverse just a little bit though, I know I'm going a little bit fast. It wasn't that long ago I think that ColorOS, at least in its early years, felt like it was trying too hard to replicate the iOS experience, but on a budget and with budget hardware. I'm pleased to say that over the past few years, that hasn't been as prominent and it hasn't been the case. Still, like a moth to a flame, Oppo and OnePlus have made some silly mistakes this time around. There are too many elements of iOS being incorporated into OxygenOS 16 this year that don't align with the rest of the aesthetic or simply diminish that premium feel that has been attempted to be cultivated over the past few generations. It's almost like the team behind OnePlus and Oppo isn't confident in their own vision to fully commit to it and continue on a path that they started down just a few years ago. Take for example some of the cosmetic changes, like the increased clear or frosted display elements. You'll notice this straight away at the lock screen. A clear touchpad is now used. It's the worst possible way to introduce people to your hardware in my opinion, as it instantly feels like a knockoff of the iOS lock screen keypad, which has again gone with down their liquid glass route. We could talk about this all day, it's a terrible implementation, but it gets worse here. I can deal with blurs and frosted elements, but in the applications it feels a little bit more egregious. In the OnePlus Weather application for instance, you get heavy blur as you scroll. It feels unnecessary and obscures some UI elements, as the text that is used to overlay here is now almost invisible to certain people with vision impairments over these sections. What is annoying about these minor changes is that OnePlus, as I say, is not fully committed to or cloning. They're just taking inspiration from iOS and trying to mix it in there. Instead, it just means adding in aspects that add no real value to the overall experience, and it feels like a halfway house in the worst possible ways. Copying isn't all bad though, as I can forgive certain options like the category section in the app drawer, but let's not act like this isn't a flat out copy. The good thing is that this does work alongside the existing app drawer. Sure, take the good stuff from those other designs and incorporate them properly. That's sensible. Lock screen customization is another area that has been good, but it leans more into the things Apple has already added back with iOS 17. There are some changes that half step into clone territory here once again though. Take for instance some of the core applications. The calculator app gets a lick of paint that isn't too dissimilar from iOS. There's a new compass application that has never really been required or hinted at previously, but suddenly it needs to be added here. It's really odd in terms of the design decisions. The plus key is a less competent action button. You can't even customize this to launch unique apps or even app macros. I'm not against customizable buttons, I'm trying to say that here, but surely the flexibility of Android means that OxygenOS 16 could have added more functions here beyond what is available. I'm sure they will in future. Even the UI itself for this button is identical to that found on iOS, which makes it feel like an afterthought and something they think they should shove in just for the sake of it, because the biggest smartphone maker on the planet is leading the way with their own things. It's hard not to be a little frustrated by these, well, admittedly minor design choices, but it is from a place of love, as almost a year ago we sung the praises of OxygenOS 15, so it meant we had ridiculously high hopes for OxygenOS 16, even if those changes didn't need to be so drastic. I do think the visuals don't take away from the experience too much, because this is still a very, very slick OS, and it helps that OnePlus phones have very high-end internals packed inside, but improved animations and performance-related attention to detail mean, let's be completely honest, you get arguably one of the smoothest feeling Android skins that has ever existed. Even Samsung's One UI can feel slow or sluggish when compared directly to OxygenOS. There are a few things that you can also do here, like tune the haptic level, which I love, which has been there for a little while, add in that excellent OnePlus shelf, which is a really nice touch, or even get better gaming experiences with deep controls part of that gaming mode to eke out the best from those very, very best of device internals. The AI features, I think they also work really well and complement a stacked lineup of functionality that is available as soon as you unlock a OnePlus phone. It's all the more frustrating as a result of that. I think here is the crux of the problem though that we're facing right now across all of Android, and we might do this in a future video. I don't want iOS, and you don't want iOS. We want a strong Android build that leans into their own unique elements. OnePlus was doing that as a company, or at least it felt like they were doing that until OxygenOS 16 was revealed. It's tough to ascertain just how much outside influences are affecting what the company is doing right now. That said, some striking similarities are plain to see for anyone who does care to look and pay attention. We can agree that being negative about some what are cosmetic changes is a little bit futile, but there is a lot to love about how well optimized and how good the suite of features in OxygenOS 16 that you get right now is. You get extensive customization options that go way beyond OEM toolkits out of the box. There is a serious attention to detail being paid to areas that I think most people would simply not notice about or care about unless you're a real hardcore Android fan. Looks and some UI changes aside, I do think OxygenOS 16 is yet another solid alternative option on the market, and I really do like that. But it's hard not to see that Apple isn't leading the UI design stakes anymore across the entire industry, and hasn't for a while. Liquid Glass is testament to that. I think we can all agree that Google's recent Material 3 Expressive update looks and feels really fresh and unique compared to what other people are putting out there. But Android makers across the entire space seem like they want to copy what Apple is doing. I do think I will make a video on that in future, but I think it just diminishes and weakens the key selling points of many Android phones out there, and the OnePlus 15 feels like testament to that. In isolation, it is very good. It just doesn't stand quite on its own as much as the OnePlus 13 did last year, and OxygenOS is partly to blame for that. I only want to be free of Apple's influence when using my favourite mobile OS, and I think, is that too much to ask? I want to ask you though, what do you think, OnePlus fans out there, and any other Android fans for that instance? Do you think the company's let us down a little bit this year? I have to say I think they have to a minor extent. Yeah, maybe I'm overblowing this, but it is frustrating to see, as I was so happy with OxygenOS 15 last year, and it probably was my favourite skin alongside One UI 7 and then One UI 8. Let me know what you think down in the comment sections below. Let's get a real conversation flowing, because this is important to us. I think it does feel like there are a lot of people who are trying to copy what Apple are doing and for all the wrong reasons. Let me know what you think down in the comment sections below, and I'll hopefully speak to you soon. Cheers.